New scientific research conducted at White Sands National Park in Alamogordo, New Mexico, has uncovered the oldest known human footprints in North America. The discovery reveals evidence of human occupation in the Tularosa Basin beginning at least 23,000 years ago, thousands of years earlier than previously thought. Now, the tracks at New Mexico's White Sands National Park are upending past assumptions on when humans first ventured into North and South America. The footprints look like they were left behind just moments ago by a barefoot visitor to New Mexico's White Sands National Park. The amblings of a slightly flat-footed teen. Each toe and heel impression crisply defined a fine ridge of sand. But this is no tourist track. These prints are among the oldest evidence of humans in the Americas, marking the latest addition to a growing body of evidence that challenges when and how people first ventured into this unexplored land. Now, according to a paper published in the Journal of Science, the footprints were pressed into the mud near an ancient lake at White Sands between 21,000 and 23,000 years ago, a time when many scientists think that massive ice sheets walled off human passage into North America. Exactly when humans populated the Americas has been fiercely debated for nearly a century. And until recently, many scientists maintain this momentous first occurred no earlier than 13,000 years ago. And it's held steadfast for some time. But a growing number of discoveries suggest people were in North and South America thousands of years before. And these include the Monteverde site in Chile, that could be as old as 18,500 years. The Galt site in Texas, that's up to 20,000 years old. But each find kicks up a firestorm of controversy among scientists, and nothing is typically resolved. The fossilized human footprints at White Sands were buried in multiple layers of gypsum soil on a large playa in the national park. Seeds embedded in the footprints were radiocarbon dated and analyzed by the USGS to establish their age. The research dramatically extends the range for the coexistence of humans and Pleistocene megafauna and confirms that humans were present in North America before the major glacial advances at the height of the last ice age, which closed migration routes from Asia. And most archaeologists believe no humans were present prior to that. Now, this study illustrates not only the process of science, but the progress, where new evidence can shift long-held paradigms. Now, White Sands National Park contains the world's largest known collection of Pleistocene age, Ice Age fossils, including footprints in the world, and has been recognized as a mega-track site since 2014. In addition to human footprints, there are tracks of the Columbian mammoth, saber-toothed cat, dire wolf, ancient camel, Harlan's ground sloth, and many other Ice Age animals. Careful study has uncovered thousands of tracks in the national park, providing a snapshot of humans and now extinct animals and how they lived. Animals that wandered across the lands near ancient Lake Otero. This was a 1,600 square mile body of water that dried up around 10,000 years ago. Each imprint was cast and bound millennia ago in gypsum-rich sand, whose pale color gives the park its name. Some of these prints are eventually exposed by winds whipping across the dunes, but they quickly weather away in the elements. Can you imagine how many prints are lost? Now, other prints, hidden beneath the sand, are visible only to the trained eye as faint shifts in color at the surface, at rare times when the ground is not too wet or too dry. And these ephemeral appearances have earned the nickname ghost tracks. Each footprint marks the place where an ancient relative once stood thousands of years ago. It just gives us goosebumps, Kim Charlie, a member of the Pueblo of Acoma, says of visiting the site. Many Native American tribes and pueblos feel a spiritual connection to White Sands, and Charlie is part of a committee in the Tribal Historic Preservation Office that has been collaborating with the research team to ensure the prints' preservation. Now, pinning down exactly when the track makers pressed their toes into the mud at White Sands, however, has proven challenging, according to study author Matthew Bennett, a geologist at Bournemouth University in England. The park's surfaces are a palimpsest of crisscrossing trackways. They could have been created in separate events thousands of years apart. To securely date a print, researchers must find a layer of seeds that can be dated using radiocarbon analysis, not only below, but also above the layers of footprints. And this way, scientists can determine the earliest and latest moments in time the horizon of prints were laid down. But season after season, their search for a site with both seeds and footprints was unsuccessful. And then came that fateful day in September of 2019 when Bustos and Bennett returned to a bluff in the park they had visited more than a dozen times before. And they knew the site harbored ancient seed deposits, but they hadn't yet found any human footprints. But on this day, the wind had uncovered a set of unmistakably human prints that ended in a mound of sand. And scraping off the upper sandy layer revealed the ghostly outlines of a buried track. And at that point, they said, bingo, we've got it. Now, a team of archaeologists, geologists, dating experts, geophysicists, and data scientists assembled to study the site, which spans an area roughly the size of half of a basketball court. And they used a battery of tests. Excavations revealed 8 separate horizons of footprints, which contained 61 human tracks left by up to 16 different people, mostly teens and children. Multiple track layers were bookended above and below by layers of sediment containing seeds from the rupia grass. This is good news because radio dating of the seeds then suggested that humans and animals trekked across the same grassy route for at least 2,000 years. And this is from 21,000 to 23,000 years ago. Now, Bennett cautions that the date only applies to the footprints at one location, this one. And the dates remain unclear for many of the other tracks at White Sands. But the early age of this site is a bombshell find, and the team is acutely aware of the boldness of their claim. They've really tried to prove that it is not that old, and they keep coming up dry. This is according to Daniel Odes, an archaeologist and chief scientist for cultural resources with the National Park Service, and also an author of the new study. Now, while the latest evidence for an early human presence in the Americas comes from footprints in the desert here in New Mexico. The bigger debate on when humans arrived centers around the ice. And as the world entered the last glacial maximum, which spanned roughly 20,000 to 26,500 years ago, temperatures decreased and growing glaciers locked up an increasing volume of water, sending sea levels plummeting more than 400 feet lower than they are today. And many land features emerged from the waves, including what is known as Beringia. A natural bridge connecting modern Siberia and Alaska that researchers believe provided a clear route for humans to make their way to the Americas. But as temperatures during the last glacial maximum dropped, a pair of massive ice sheets, known as the Laurentide and Cordilleran, advanced across what is now Canada, forming a near continuous icy wall from the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean, perhaps as early as 23,000 years ago. And many scientists have argued that humans could never have made inroads south into Canada until after this ice was melted. And since the mid-1900s, the threshold for these first migrations was set at 13,000 years ago, with the rise of the Clovis culture, a group known for their distinctive, exquisite tools. Many scientists, however, now accept that humans entered the Americas as early as 17,000 years ago, perhaps traveling down routes along the Pacific coast that became passable before the icy continental interior melted and the ice-free corridor was revealed. But White Sands stands among few sites suggesting that humans were already in North America thousands of years before any of this. With the discovery announced last year that suggests people may have been present in Mexico's Chiquihuite cave as early as 30,000 years ago, critics of the Chiquihuite study question whether humans or geology fractured the rocks. But I've looked at the artifacts, and there are thousands of them. And they're not thousands of accidents. Now, this concern has plagued many of the pre-Clovis sites. But there's no doubt that White Sands track makers were human. Take a look. This is just screamingly obvious. What's more, there isn't just one set of prints at White Sands, but thousands of them in multiple layers of human activity dated earlier than 20,000 years ago and lasting for thousands of years. If you don't like one layer, okay, that's fine. There's another one. And if you don't like that one, there's another. And another. And another. Now, some scientists still question the reliability of the dates for the footprints obtained by the research team. Lauren Davis, an archaeologist at Oregon State University, stresses the need for a second dating method to verify the radiocarbon results, and I agree. Pointing to the phenomenon of what is known as hard water or freshwater reservoir effect that can muddy radiocarbon dates. This happens because aquatic plants like Rupia grass, which the seeds they're using for dating, they draw carbon from compounds dissolved in their wetland environment. And if old carbon, such as carbonate rock, is present, the plants will incorporate it into their bodies, which can in turn result in deceptively old radiocarbon dates. Land plants, however, do not suffer from these effects since they draw carbon from the atmosphere, where the relative amounts of radioactive and non-radioactive carbon are fairly constant. The team studied the potential for a freshwater reservoir effect, concluding that they were likely negligible, as this was grass. Now, while the evidence the team presents can't prove such an effect is absent, it does suggest that any potential impacts are fairly small. And this is according to Bente Philipson, a radiocarbon specialist at Aarhus University, who was not part of the study team and, in fact, an independent auditor. Philipson adds that most freshwater reservoir effects are on the order of hundreds, not thousands of years. The most severe effect ever measured is a couple of thousands of years. Even if we assume the reservoir effect would be as bad at White Sands site as anywhere, that still wouldn't change the conclusion that these prints are more than 20,000 years old. That's a bold statement. Thomas Stafford, a geochronologist with Stafford Research in Colorado, who was not part of the study team, agrees on the reliability of the dates and comments on the thoroughness of the study. This took a long time and was really, really well done. Additional confirmation of the dates may be tough to obtain. And what I mean by that is that the team attempted to use a method involving uranium, but the samples were not well suited for this type of analysis. Now, other techniques, such as optical stimulated luminescence, which could help confirm the timing, could also be implemented. But the researchers add that OSL can have a very large standard deviation, so it may not provide a tidy confirmation of the dates. Yet the team is still working to perfect their methods of uranium dating to obtain an OSL date for additional confirmation. Now, according to Davis, and I quote, "I, for one, will be very excited if these dates are true." But he adds, and I quote, "I just think it's premature for us to get the champagne out and say it's been done and we nailed it." Now, the reason for such a close eye on these numbers is because, if confirmed, the discovery of people in the Americas during the last glacial maximum would require a fundamental shift in scientific thinking about how people arrived in North America. A massive shift. Did they sneak through inland routes before the glacier doors slammed shut during the last glacial maximum? Did they boat around icy areas of the coast? Or were they already here for thousands of years? More importantly, it actually requires us to think about how we do archaeology. Because no one's looking at 22,000-year-old deposits for evidence of humans. And that's part of the problem. In the past, Stafford says, scientists have sent him excavated material to radiocarbon date and requested he stop analyzing once he reached material 13,000 years old. Now that cutoff is closer to 18,000 years, he says, but such hard lines may have been blinded by past research to even older discoveries. We are preventing ourselves from discovering things because we are stuck in our old ways. I hope the work at White Sands will help inspire scientists as well as future generations of students to take another look at early human movements through the Americas before 13,000. And I bet you we find that we missed a lot. This intense controversy has dissuaded many past students from continuing to study American prehistory because of its controversy. But after decades, of the field centering around the Clovis culture of only 13,000 years ago, change may finally be on the horizon. And soon, we will not speak in terms of pre-Clovis. We will speak in terms of pre-White Sands. And that, well, that's a scientific boom. Expand your horizons. Open up the possibilities. That's science. What's happening today is dogma. Science is ever flowing, ever increasing, ever expanding, ever adapting. That's how we learn new things. And you can see from the study and what's happened in the last 2 years, and the fact that almost no one listening right now has even heard about these prints, that the same thing is happening now. The information is being suppressed because it upends everything we know about everything. And that's another boom. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Share this with like-minded people and keep an open mind. The science is never settled. Period.